Maryborough Harbour Bay, work with Susie at Fresco Art Gallery Academy, and I'm also an abstract artist.
I'm Libby Park. I'm from the Regional Gallery and I'm a trainee there.
Wanda Bennett, I'm from Mackay and I'm a 6-year resident officer and also public programs at Upstairs Mackay.
Kirsty Veron, retired arts worker living in Atherton, North Queensland on the RADF committee, and I'm on the DG.
Kirsty, you never retire.
Just remember, mic right up close.
Okay, right up to your left.
Hi, I'm Sandy Capetta from Bundaberg Regional Art Galleries and from Tarrabalane, Gorang, Bunda, Bachelor and several other groups in Bundaberg region. Thanks.
Michelle Blair, Southwest Queensland resin officer, and I live in Toowoomba.
Julie Chenery, I'm from Moreton Bay Shire, but I work on Yagara and Turrbal land. I'm here with Partner Gale, and we're Gold Moves.
I'm Janice Bailey from Tamborine Mountain. I'm a community-based activist currently working with a group, an arts, multi-arts thing, and with people with disabilities. And of course we're on Auntie Ruby's People's Land, which is lovely.
Hello, I'm Zoe Hankins. Oh, gonna kiss this microphone. Hello, I'm Zoe Hankins. I'm from Yugambeh Language Speaking Cross Country in Logan City, and I'm a community health and arts worker.
Hello. Oh, I have a projecting voice, you see, teacher. My name's Gail Houghton. I come from Noosa, which is Gubby Land. I'm here as co-director along with Julie of Gold Moves Australia, and I'm also, my practice in Noosa is as director of RIPE Dance for Older People.
Melissa Robertson. I work across many countries, so I feel I work on sovereign land, always was, always will be.
I'm Alison Richardson. I'm the Artistic Director, CEO at Crossroad Arts in Mackay.
Hi, I'm Chris Harvey and I'm Sandy's significant other.
Ant McKenna, grew up on Wurundjeri land in eastern Victoria, live on Cubby country on the Sunshine Coast, and work for BMAC.
I'm Luke Harriman. I work for the Regional Council, which includes the traditional lands of the Bachelor, Waka Waka and Cubby people.
Hi, I'm Grace. I work for BMAC and I live on Yugambeh country.
Hello, my name's Jodie. I'm a independent theatre maker and a comedian and a writer, and I'm based in Rockhampton on Darrabul country.
Hi, my name's Matthew. I'm an artist support for Brendan Borrellini, and this is Brendan Borrellini. He's non-verbal. He's an artist in residence and ambassador at Crossroad Arts in Mackay, or Yuwabara. Thank you. Yeah, Brendan Borrellini from Crossroad Arts in Mackay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cindy Vogels. We represent Space Girls, which is a 100% female programmed festival in the Gympie region. And I'm Jocelyn Smith. Okay, and there are a few people online, but we can't see their names and they can't necessarily respond because it's just a stream, not a communication. Sorry, I didn't realise that. But welcome everyone who's online. So our conversation provocateurs were given a little bit of a challenge to present back to you a word poem or a haiku that will kind of give a context of what they understand barriers to be for themselves and their practice. So I'm going to introduce each of them, and they're going to introduce themselves through their haiku and then maybe a little bit of a framing around how that was presented. So I'm going to start from this end. We've got Grace Edwards, who is the Arts Engagement Officer at BMAC, has a big background in theatre, and is interested in intergenerational challenges of Africans community in Australia specifically. And I heard your poem last night, Grace, and it was pretty impressive. So very strong, powerful words. And next to her, so I'm going to introduce you together, is Ant McKenna, who he says he's got over 30 years and who would know experience in the cultural and creative sector. And I know Ant through his music, actually, Those Bloody McKennas and others. So welcome Grace and Ant, and let's share your haiku.
So I was kind of a last minute addition, and it's not really a haiku what I wrote, sorry. It takes a little bit of time to write poetry. So barriers, representation, not tokenism, asking questions, not assumptions, allowing people who aren't represented to have a seat at the table and be part of the conversation.
BMAC is the Brisbane Multicultural Arts Centre, and we're based in Kangaroo Point, but we work across southeast Queensland, and we're part of two other umbrella organisations. One's called Access Community Services, which is based in Logan and Ipswich and Townsville and the Gold Coast, and we're also part of an organisation called SSI, Settlement Services International, which is based in regional New South Wales and Sydney, as well as Melbourne. And so, hugely complex organisational structure, which is brilliant in lots of ways. We are running the RASN, Regional Arts Services Network, in Logan and Ipswich. Both of those communities are incredible communities. Logan has 216 or more different cultural groups. Ipswich is similar. Both regions have incredible disadvantage. Both councils have no leadership at the moment. Both of the councils have been sacked. There's an incredible lack of trust within those communities, and just huge kind of complex issues for us to work with. So my haiku is beautifully complex people, places, culture, let's play.
Can we just hear yours again?
Okay. So my words again, representation, not tokenism, asking questions, not making assumptions, and allowing people who aren't represented to have a seat at the table and be part of the decision making.
Oh, I have to introduce you, sorry. I'm getting my job here. I've got lots of different pieces of paper, but I actually find these pieces of paper a little bit overwhelming because so this is quite beautiful. She always says she takes a philosophical stroll through creative discovery, childhood mentorship and self-determination. So you're the artist apprentice. It's pretty nice.
Hello, thank you. So yeah, I wrote down 7 words, which weren't so much a haiku as lots of things to describe barriers like trauma and paternalism and discrimination. So instead of haiku, I thought I'd just present an artist initiative that I run. It's called Videnda, which is a Latin word, and I'm probably slaughtering it, but you know, the Videnda of Paris might be the Eiffel Tower. And it means something that is to be seen or observed, especially if because it marks the character of a personal place. And so that's the spirit that I try to bring into my own art and my own community arts work, is just the spirit of the thing and what makes us strong and diverse, and things that should be shared and observed rather than tucked away and hidden. So,
Hello, I'm Libby from the Gimpy Gallery. So Julie and I we didn't write a haiku either.
No, we didn't.
But what we did do was we brainstormed together words that sort of symbolise the barriers that we come across when dealing with youth and school leavers. So some of those words were communication, inexperience, support, action, location, insecurity, and
So we're working towards integrating high school students who are interested in art more in the gallery in their 13th year, we call it. We've started off with a program called, which a lot of galleries have done, we've done for 21 years, with our High Arts exhibition that gives all school leavers from grade 9 to 12 to have the opportunity to have their work selected for that exhibition. About 8 years ago we took the next step and started a mentoring program with senior artists or artists in our own community who are mentoring youth for they do a 12-hour break as part of their schooling, and they go to see their mentors after school. And then they're part of the exhibition, a separate part of the exhibition every year. This year we took it one step further, and this was after being influenced by Tank Arts. Tank Arts were influenced by us with our mentorship. We've been influenced by them with this next project for the year 13s, where we, as a curator, I select 1 or 2 students out of that exhibition who will have an exhibition of their own in the year following. So it's a small amount of money towards it, but gives them something to think about, giving their goal to where they may want to go to after grade 12 if they're not going straight into study or work anywhere else. And we're hoping to carry this on for a while and see how it goes and how much stronger we can make that, and possibly see sponsorship and other partnerships to increase that leverage there for students. Thanks, Julie. So Cindy and Jasmine are part of an organisation called Space Girls, which I'll talk about. But Cindy's costume designer, artistic director with a difference, and is looking at collaborations between herself and her friends and clients around image making. And Jasmine is a filmmaker and a dynamic entrepreneur. So what's your...
we did attempt to write a haiku,
yes,
but let's just say it's not one, so it's a little more flexible. What you cannot see is more challenging to be.
Take up more space, girls.
What you cannot see is more challenging to be.
Take up more space, girls.
So Space Girls is our brand new festival. Some of you might have heard us talk about it at the Chakacha. I'm still pronouncing that differently to everybody else. And we obviously have our own independent arts practices as well, but Space Girls is specifically designed, honestly, to break down barriers, so it's very fitting to discuss it here today, obviously for women.
Of all ages, musical genres and beyond. We just, my work in the music industry specifically just sees such a gross underrepresentation of women in music, and I kind of got sick of complaining about it and decided to brave up and do something about it. I'm completely unqualified to run a music festival, but I literally couldn't sit on my hands any longer and wait for somebody else to do it. So I have literally called in favours with every gorgeous, creative music artist and anyone who knew anything about it, and just admitted my deficiencies. And I basically partnered with Jasmine, who has a lot of incredible strengths that I don't have, and for some magical reason, we actually pulled off an incredible music event 2 weeks ago on Friday the 13th of August. No, September, sorry.
Everybody sort of scoffed at the Friday the 13th thing, but honestly, Cindy then broke her rib. I got influenza A, so we might steer away from that next time.
Thanks. We might pass on to Kerry-Ann. Kerry-Ann's CEO, Kerry, of Flying Arts, and they've been doing a lot of development work with children and young people.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so Flying Arts, visual arts based, but our work with the younger groups is through teachers and schools and artists, and then our work with the almost school leaving years is our artist residency programs and school holidays. So my almost haiku is school, teacher, parents, gateway to young creatives, remoteness, where's my creative tribe? Thanks.
So we'll pass to Brendan and Matt, who are here representing Crossroad Arts from Macau. I'm just trying to think of what the countries, and I don't know.
Yep. So we've got a haiku. Vulnerable, confused, there is no sight or hearing. Can feel with my hands. So that's what Brendan wrote last night. That was pretty good of him, I thought. And he's just got here. My name is Brendan Borrellini. I've worked for Crossroad Arts for the last 9 years as an artist in residence and ambassador. My roles are performer, workshop facilitator, photographer and researcher. This involves me in assisting people with disability by developing and learning new skills. He's got a bit more. Cool. When I first started working at Crossroad Arts, some barriers had prevented me from gaining opportunities as an artist because there was a lack of support in communication and braille, which made things very difficult for me. I felt very frustrated and left out. As a result, I did not have much support from the local community. I finally overcame the difficult time by pushing harder and breaking down barriers by relying on some assistance from Crossroad Arts, while also learning some skills in the art of photography and performing. This helped me smash through the barriers. I believe the lack of support is one of the most difficult things I've had over the last few years, but I'm happy to say that my work as an artist has helped me open up to the whole world. I believe that I believe we can gain support from regional Queensland, which would be willing to participate in working closely with them. Artists with disability can gain more opportunities by holding their works to show people what they can do to support the community. Good. Thanks.
So already a lot of stimulus there, and we're also quite conscious of understanding that everyone, either online or in this room, comes with their own understanding of barriers. So I think intrinsically we all encounter them at some point in our lives in small and big ways. And so we wanted to, I suppose, broaden the conversation so that we could be a bit more participatory about this. And also have an objective that at the end of our conversation today we take away some clear actions that we can apply in our own personal engagement, but also more together as collectively. So a bit of a question to you all. We have a few sort of feeder questions that originally we were going to talk collectively in small groups around tables that aren't here anymore. So how would you like to go? Shall we break into small groups, or are you prefer to talk as a large group? Just means we have a bit of capacity of sharing and making sure we all have a collective access to the microphones so that our friends online are part of that conversation as well. So just means we have time for pause and thinking really as we share, which is a good option as well. So I just think we have to be a bit democratic with the microphone, and we'll pass it around when you kind of shake. No, I think we can do it collectively. So for those people on the outer rim, maybe even kind of step in a little bit closer so we feel like we're all in the same circle in some way. That might be useful as well. I'm going to sit over here so I can write on this piece of paper. Is that all right? Norm, is it okay if I sit here? I'm just conscious that we're also putting our backs to people online, but we'll try and be as inclusive
as possible. There's a gimbal now, so it's all within the circle.
Oh, fantastic. So what we might do is our conversation provocateurs have had these questions rolling around in their mind already. So we might start kind of a stimulus from them, but then the idea is we fold out and we kind of bring in other conversations as well. So even if you want to sort of step back a little bit so we're not so, there's a couple of layers behind us, but let's see how we go. So we've kind of framed this around looking for stimulus, because I think a lot of people have come to this gathering to be stimulated, and I heard there's a couple of ladies here that felt that was a big part of why you came to this session. So we bring some stimulus from the panellists who've been chosen here because of the work that they've been doing, but we also wanted to look at what more from here. So we might start, and in terms of stimulus, it'd be really great to know what has been working well. So things, I mean, we've already heard some of those ideas that have come through the introductions of our provocateurs in terms of what has been successful, and we also know behind success is also a lot of things that don't work and have been learned from. So maybe we might start by what is working well and what was a learning that happened in your experimentation or your kind of development of these projects. Karen, you've got a mic in your hand. Do you want to start?
Yes, I will. So I'll talk briefly about two projects. One is the Connecting Art with School curriculum. So that was about engaging the arts in primary school and keeping it firmly in the curriculum. There was a research project that we did with the University of Southern Queensland as a action pilot to work on teachers who were often generalist teachers, may not have had any training in the arts and yet had to engage with the arts, and working with local artists to collaborate on lesson plans, so bringing the two content areas together, or knowledge areas together, and that then became a seminar series we were doing in galleries, because galleries also tell us, that bringing engaging teachers, often in regional galleries, is challenging. So we did that seminar series, and then it became a small schools program for schools under 50 students, and we're still running that one.
What's the key success?
Well, the key success is the collaboration between the artist and the teacher. So I suppose what I was indicating was a research model that then had practical outcomes and then continued practical application. So that was a success. The other thing is our artist residency model for young people, which was the second part of my haiku, because often taking art forms that are not necessarily in senior education, giving young creatives the opportunity to engage in new media, street art, critical writing, and bringing them together. And apart from that part, what the success was that young creatives felt not alone anymore. They find their tribe who go, you're interested in the same things I'm interested in, and what I'm doing is valid. And I can now go back and I say, I've spoken to professionals in the arts industry, so this is a valid career option for me. So they were the things that are working.
I just wanted to dive off what you said with the collaborations. I think a key part of the success of your program as well is continuity. I've seen that. I know Logan City Council has art waves. They also have the ripple effect, which is then likewise selecting artists from that cohort to then go on and do things. And then I think a further step from that would then be allowing young people to mentor other young people. And just pay it forward and keep it going, and really put that continuity to the fore, and then allowing young people leadership. I think that's just really important. Obviously in our political discourse at the moment, everyone seems to be a little uncomfortable with 16-year-olds telling adults what to do, but I actually think it's quite important, and that with these initiatives and programs, how can we allow young people to step up to mentorship and leadership roles as well, and so they can say, well, look, 5 years ago I was in your position and now I'm, managing the program.
So Grace, you talked about getting a seat at the table. Could you unpack what you mean by that?
Getting a seat at the table is this right now for me. It's having this chance to share a perspective that I don't think has really been spoken to or shared throughout Arts Ablaze. And it's getting that opportunity to speak up for a minority or a group of people who aren't really represented in the arts, firstly because there is no access for them to the arts. Arts careers aren't really encouraged in our communities, and also we don't have the networks to get there. I don't have an example I am looking to of another person who is African or South Sudanese who has gotten either to this level or a level beyond me in Australia. I don't have that. So I am literally wading through the water on my own, trying to find the path to get to that dream or that career I think for myself.
So does anyone, and this is inclusive of the people here, have examples of people getting access to that table?
Yeah, just to give you a bit of background about myself, which feeds into the discussion. I'm an artist who suffers from anxiety, depression, PTSD and social anxiety disorder. It's been a lifelong struggle for me. 3 years ago I found Fraser Coast Art Collective through artist call out that Susie put out to have a major exhibition at Harvey Bay Regional Gallery. At that time I was feeling really isolated and alone. I wanted to be a professional artist, didn't know how to, wanted to meet other artists, felt like I was the only artist in the Fraser Coast, even though I knew that I wasn't. And I found these guys, and from there I've grown into this other person.
So what would you identify as being the successful thing that enabled that?
We've also managed to draw in a network of over 70 artists. A lot of them we've found suffer, like myself, from mental illness, and listening to the guy speak yesterday saying that artists suffer 5 to 10 times more from mental illness than people who aren't artists, and the stats for those, are huge. 1 to 4 people, 1 in 4 people in Australia will suffer from depression, 1 in 2 from anxiety in their lifetime. That's massive. So imagine the number of artists that suffer from anxiety and depression, mental illness. So we've brought in this big network of people. We all feel supported, especially those of us who do suffer from mental illness. We feel supported, we feel empowered to chase projects and artistic dreams.
What was the thing that was the success that got you over the line? What do you think it was that got you in?
Support, yeah. And feeling that I wasn't alone, that other people around me that suffered from the same thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Jasmine, what about you? What would you say was your key success process? You obviously really succeeded and continue. What would you think was a really core element of that?
Well, I suspect that collaboration is going to be a fairly strong theme throughout this, so I might jump to a sort of different perspective. As a young person who has entered the arts from quite a challenging background, I think access to people who are going out of their way to be visible as support networks is really important. So I would say people seeking to be very visible and very accessible. So perhaps if you have that platform and you're beyond a point where collaboration is, super important to your practice, you might think about putting more energy behind being the one facilitating that and just making yourself very accessible.
So that's a call for us to step up into a leadership role to offer opportunities for more people. Is that what you're saying? Brendan, what do you think has been, you've been involved in Crossroads Arts for a long time now, and you've managed to be quite exposed with your work. What would have been the key element for you that enabled that success?
We spoke with Brendan earlier in the lead up to this event about some of these questions, because obviously we have a barrier of communication. So we tried our best to answer some of that stuff. And the question that we were asked was, how do we amplify what is working well? And Brennan responded in this way. My advice for artists with disability is to push harder by breaking down all the barriers while working together and sharing their artistic works, which can be visible to the community based on cultural, traditional and community arts, which are very important. Visibility is very important. This will never ever stop them from being viewed as a closed society. I would also like to encourage you to give more support for artists with disability by communicating and providing resources to them in the future.
What sort of resources?
So Brandon's just catching up, reading what was written there.
Communication board is he's reading the comments that have been typed into a braille system, and then what Brendan is typing is now being relayed back to the phone so that it can be read off the phone. Pretty amazing, isn't it?
So he's just reiterating that visibility is important for artists in breaking down the barriers. Because they want to show the way their artworks can be made to the people. Well, they want to show the way their artworks can be made visible to the people who don't understand that people with disability can access these with some support.
Just jump off other people's ideas. I'm like, oh, that's really good.
Sorry, right up close.
Oh my god, this is intimate. Okay, yeah, I really like to respond to what other people have said. So I think something else that's working when we go, what types of disability, what types of support? One of those is identified positions. So I know everyone's a little bit scared of quotas when it comes to government funding and stuff, but actually going, this is a paid role for a person with a disability, this is a paid role for somebody with an identified mental illness or what have you. I also think identified exhibitions and events. For 3 years now I've been very fortunate to be part of Epic Assist's annual art exhibition, which is exclusively for people with a disability. And I think those types of events are really crucial. Also, groups that are, funded or not, that are exclusively for peers. Whether it's, in my case, Videnda is chronic health, mental health, and disability concerns. Other places might just be for mental health. Other places might be just for disability. But actually existing loudly and having some of that exclusivity and saying, you won't include us in the broader conversation, so we'll just have our own, and then you can start listening. So
Jimmy, do you want to add anything about what would you see as your key element of success in your journey?
I have to say, I have to agree with Grace in that just being here is a huge success for me. I started my journey with the Gympie Regional Gallery actually when I was a child, going to holiday fun activities, and from there I went and did Project Connect, which is the mentorship opportunity that Julie was talking about, and I was part of High Artworks, which is our annual high school exhibition. And then from there I got my traineeship, so it's sort of been this slow build with this interaction that I've had with my local gallery. And I think also the fact that I am able to work and be creative in my hometown is a huge success for me. I did go to the city for a couple of years and studied, and there the achievement that I felt I was creating was a lot less than what I have felt in the last couple of years with my traineeship. And every day that I'm at work and I'm learning something new, that is a little bit more of a success for me till at the very end of my time at the gallery, it will have culminated into this experience, which will be an amazing success and is something that will set me up for the rest of my life.
I'm also going to do some bouncing off what Brendan said and then what Zoe said about when you're planning accessibility and opening things up. Sometimes the simplest thing to do is ask what resources are needed, what accessibility is needed. For instance, I also have disability, just in the interest of disclosure. When we think about disability accessibility, we think about wheelchairs or we think about guide dogs. One of the most prevalent and fastest growing disabilities is ASD, and people on the spectrum have specific accessibility needs around sensory sensitivity, which can be incredibly challenging in a chaotic situation like this. And sometimes accessibility things are stuff you would never think of if you don't live in that world. For instance, I run an open mic event up in Rockhampton. One of the major barriers for people from low socioeconomic backgrounds being involved is that there's no public transport at night. So you've got no safe way to get there and get home again if you don't drive, which some of our people don't. So it is as simple as asking, because it may not be what you think it is.
I think that goes back to what you said in your haiku.
I think for me, saying representation rather than tokenism is the fact that within my own practice, although I'm Afro-South Sudanese, whenever I run a theatre project, it's not just my perspective alone. There are 44 tribes in South Sudan, and I'm not even going into sub-tribes or clans. It's the same type of system that is here with the Indigenous Australians. So when I'm doing a project on, say, colorism, which I'm doing right now, I still need to do workshops to find out how colorism affects people from different communities or cultures or tribes, and I have to sit down and have those conversations because I can't go and write just based on my perspective alone. It's not just my story. And I think that's the same thing when it comes to disability, because there's a range of different disabilities and everybody, it affects everyone differently, the needs are different, the resources that are needed are also different. So I think if we all apply the same type of principle, and it's also about, for me, collaborating. So going into writing this piece, I can't write from a lighter skinned person's perspective on colorism because I am not of lighter skin. So I need to get artists or creators or people of color who want to write or perform in a theater piece who haven't before into the process and collaborate and work with them. And to all work together and to write a piece of theater that is representative of all our voices.
I think that's a common story that's been developed over the last 3 years. Do you want to add something to that?
Just to quickly say, when BMAC first got the Razin gig for Logan and Ipswich, the first thing we did was listen to what the community needed. We set up some community engagement processes and surveys and that kind of thing, and engaged local people in both Logan and Ipswich as the workers to lead those discussions and that project. And we said to the community, if you want to put on your own creative project, whatever that is, whoever you are, we've got a little bit of money that can help you do it. And we basically, it's like a 3-question application, which is mainly who are you and where do you live and what's your project. And then we get in touch with them and we go, great, okay, here's a little bit of money to understand what best of things we've done, I suppose, is making it as easy as possible for people to understand their support for creativity.
I really like the word host, and often I think what we talk about is about how we host for people into places or into experiences or into offers, and sometimes the barrier is in the process of how we don't host well. So if you think about that in terms of all of these issues that we're arising, what would be some key steps in a way to host a collective group of multi-dimensional people into, and what would be some key steps if we were going to say to our leaders or to our organisations that the way to host better, the way to bring down barriers, to be good hosts is to blah blah blah. What might some of those things be?
That's the first step, definitely is entry points, but I also can't find a better word for it, but the pastoral care aspect. So if someone has been coming and they stop coming, how do you go and check up? Who's got the right for that? We have challenges around duties of reporting. We don't have to, so that in a way gives us some safety around people telling us things, but then does that keep us safe? So I'm thinking of the practitioners around that as well, but I'd love a new word for pastoral care, because obviously I've nicked that from the churches. But
anyone got a suggestion? I think hosting is pretty good.
Well, hosting only goes so far. It's that follow-up, and then the longitudinal follow-up is, I think, the key from what you were saying before. I love that story of that slow uptake, and how do we keep that fire burning with the embers. Thank you for that story.
Anyone?
I was just thinking that host was a lovely word, but I was thinking one of the important things to host is to really work out the needs of that community and really listen, really take the time to listen to different needs.
So could we say that if we're talking to an organisation, like if we want to be practical about this, would we say if you're going to do this project, you have to have such a time for communal conversations and questioning?
Yeah, community consultation, absolutely.
Because sometimes we say that we do that, but we don't necessarily give it time.
Yeah, I was also thinking of people that are dyslexic.
Yeah, you need to sit really close to the mic because we've got a lot of screens in the room.
I was also thinking about people that were dyslexic who had more difficulties with expressing themselves, that have lots of, I was thinking about those people as well.
Alright, so we've got a lot of organisations that have been here over the day, people who are working in arts organisations or independent artists who work with councils. What would be some things that we could practically say need to be done in that invitation process?
I guess if we're talking successes in our community, what I think we've done well with the creators is we kind of referring back to what Jasmine was saying earlier, in having someone who is a creative be a leader, and that fell to me by accident. I feel like I fell into that role accidentally because I was looking at what was happening in my artistic career and seeing what was missing. And I'm like, if it's missing for me, it's missing for you. So, like Karen said, I formed something that was very organic, that said, what skills do we need to find? What do we need to do to band together? That word collaboration comes up over and over again. And our organisation, I think the word I use all the time is always in flux, is anyone who walks through our doors referring to this pastoral care. I'm like, what do you need? What is it that you don't know about the industry? Who in our group can fill that need for you? I'm the coordinator who will walk forward and butt heads with council about putting projects forward and bring the information back, because I realise
sorry, talk really closely. I realised that, and a lot of that's been reflected this weekend, is that the creative mind is very special. It needs a certain kind of nurturing, needs a certain kind of support, and when they walk into our gallery space, that's what's offered. It's like, what is your story? What do you need from us? Is there someone in our group who can offer it? It might not be me, it might not be you, it might be that person sitting at the back of the room who hears your story and comes forward. We have no politics, we're not incorporated like the art collective side of it. There's none in ours. We don't have any formal structure, nobody takes any kind of roles. It's literally sitting around talking about the industry, going, what do you need, how we can help. We find projects, we you know, where do you fit in, whatever level you fit in, what skills do you need that someone in our support can.
So can I summate that you're saying the invitation has to be open-ended?
This invitation is in our community and it's worked incredibly well.
Just on the thought of another term for pastoral care, I think the term community isn't just an adjective or a noun, it is an active event, and in a similar way, art is an active event. Everything that we are creating isn't in isolation, it needs to connect strongly, like I'm sure you all feel that it connects strongly to things that might seem like they have nothing to do with it there and then. It's a fluid event that is continual, and we as artists and arts workers, we are just living in a continuum of creating this beautiful culture. That's what we're doing in everything that we do. And so I think framing it as community, you know, we are of the community and for the community as artists, and keeping that at the forefront of our focus and having very genuine intentions to really do good by that term community, I think will always sort of point us in the right direction about how to connect with our community, because you can't possibly sort of create your practice with that in mind without then having the obvious choice being to seek out every relevant person that you could sort of bring with you along the way.
So community as a verb.
Yes.
We take on community as a verb.
So I wanted to pick up on that point too, because with all due respect, and we're all humans, and the card-carrying government workers, and particularly my heart goes to the arts officers that are in those bureaucracies. This is where your NGOs really work structurally, and I think what you talked about there, by putting us brokers in the middle, you know, we are seen as objective off to the side. We can achieve on your behalf sometimes as well. We can be that two-way, and I think that government, particularly local government, forget that because they are of the community and they do feel like they're part of it, but actually people are really nervous about that and revealing or sharing, and and that's real. And like I said, with all due respect, because I have a lot of dear friends in the councils, they forget that that is often the biggest barrier, is simply the card they're carrying. So use your NGOs. We're here and we would like to broker on your behalf a lot more.
Beautiful offer, thank you, Melissa. Zoe.
Hello, yeah, look, I just think that what Grace was saying about consultation and about co-creation, and this isn't just co-design where you get people in positions of authority that go, let us just steal all your intellectual property and then use it as our own. Like, yeah, I don't want to get political, I'm going to get political. And that's the thing, is that I think that we have to call some stuff out, and if the focus here is hosting, the implication then is that we are guests. And I think that politically that has happened in this country. We treat Indigenous people like they're guests on their own flippin' land, and I think that we're doing that artistically as well. Sorry to get emotional about it, but whether it's in services, and you know, regional galleries do fantastic work, clinical services and arts programs, you know, for people with complex mental health, you know, they do fantastic work, but it's not a decentralized power structure. It's very hierarchical. It can be very paternal, like paternalistic. We're doing this for your own good and your own safety, and
we're doing it in a way that's heavily supervised or co-opted into someone else's agenda, and politically that is so hurtful. So I think we actually need to decentralize and destabilize some of those hierarchies that are intrinsically hurtful and harmful, and actually put the art back in the hands of the artists, put the funding back in the hands of the artists, and put the distribution or the service delivery or whatever else, and these needs, and you think, what do people need? And we're not asking them. We're not having those conversations even within our own communities, and it's a real luxury. Again, my heart goes out to somebody who has a business card and is sitting on, sitting in an ivory tower just thinking, I just want to help the little people, I'm so sorry to get, but we're here, and for queer communities, it's a matter of survival. For migrant and refugee communities, it's a matter of survival. We don't have this choice of going, oh, it'd be nice to be in that art program. No, we are busy struggling with a lot of stuff. So I think, things like outreach, decentralizing that, actually coming down and being with people, being in communities, and not just leading it up to, there's leaders in the space that are part of demographics that are taking time out of their survival schedule to lead these groups, to create workshops, create content, unite people, and do all of this. And then there's that disconnect between people that have resources and money and power who are just going, oh, we just don't know what they need. So I think tear the system down, decentralize, and actually work together.
I'm talking from one of those people who sit up in one of those towers looking down at the little people. And I'm sorry about that. I am an artist myself. I do feel for all of the people that we do try to help from our position in local government, and especially in the gallery, because quite often we feel like we're a separate entity to everybody else in local government, and we don't play the rules quite often quite the same way or expect it. But I like to think that even about our youth programs, that some of the success, which I didn't get to talk about before, is that success when you see a young person's face light up when they know that their work has been selected to be hung on a gallery wall, or their name has been called out to be chosen to be interviewed for an exhibition. Whether they get it or not, it's that joy that you see on their face that you have actually helped them on their course. This has set them. They may not have thought of doing art before, all of a sudden their work's on a gallery wall and they think about it. And this has been quite prevalent in our last exhibition, wasn't it? We had 2 young boys who we got to draw on our gallery walls as part of the exhibition, and they never ever thought that they would be selected. And now their names are down to be chosen for this Curators Award next year. So little gains, but for us they're big.
Brendan, did you want to add anything to that?
Brendan had some practical advice about the access requirements. It was just to include alternative communication like Braille or large print audio descriptions and easy read. It's just, Brendan went to America a couple of years ago, and he was astonished about the Braille menus in every single restaurant that you go to there. It's a mandatory thing that they have to have, and we had a bit of a push in Mackay last year to try and get a couple of places to get Braille, and the local art space took it on board, which was amazing, but a few other people even when I was working at a bar myself, the managers would say, oh, it's too expensive for one person, which is really disheartening. But that's just something really simple.
So maybe one of the asks to the council is to help with that cost or support. I think Gail had something. Sorry.
Sorry, Brendan's just saying it.
We didn't organise this, but he's just saying when I was in America I was impressed with everything done in Braille menus, labels, and other programs. Yeah, other programs which are used by blind people to access the public. Yeah, it's legislation over there. He's saying that they have to have these things. Yeah.
I think one thing about barriers is as soon as you start to unpack one, there's many others that are opened up. And so that idea of flow on, and I know in America they did this amazing project in gallery for vision impaired people, but the outcome of it was definitely for that community, but it engaged a whole range of other people into gallery who'd never been there before. So it opened access in multiple ways for people who were hearing impaired and older people that hadn't actually engaged with the so the flow-on effect of looking at unpacking a certain barrier certainly opens up more. Brendan had it.
It inspired, yeah, he did. The trip to America it inspired him to push for Mackay to adopt these braille, large text and audio to be put in the programs for people with disability who can read them. Yeah, and he's just showing you his device there, which has the braille which pops up and down as we type everything, which is pretty cool.
Thanks, Brendan. That's amazing.
Just a really practical thing is, if I get into the inaccessibility of funding applications, I'll be here all day. But just putting in an access line into budget. So if everyone in their budgets, councils, funding bodies just had access, and you had to say how you were going to contribute to the access of your project and the people's project, would be really helpful. And access just can go on for days. And I always just say to people, look, just focus on one thing and do that well, and let people know that you're committed to improving it year in and year out. Because you can't. Otherwise, people come to a standstill and don't feel like they can do anything. They're like, it's too much. How can I cater to everybody's access requirements all the time? And I just say, look, just start at one. I think and do that well and build from there.
Great. I've got Gal and then we'll go to
I work with older people using dance for health and well-being. A range of older people having different abilities, mobilities, dance experience, etc. There are barriers for older people which I see as external and very similar to those expressed by the young people in the earlier workshop. Transport, access to facilities, access to activities, etc., etc. But before we get to those barriers, there are personal barriers of the older people themselves. Internalised ageism. I don't dance. I don't dance anymore. I never danced. There's their perceptions of what dance is and what it can be for an older person. Body image issues and fear of a lot of things. Fear of falling, fear of meeting new people, fear of looking silly, and that's all those things are wrapped around together. So they're I think very specific barriers for those people. I work long-term with people, ongoing. I do projects, not a lot. My thing about health and wellbeing is that it's an ongoing program of classes and sessions in working with the people to achieve particular outcomes, and the success of seeing amazing transformation in my participants is all about using a relational approach and developing very strong relationships between me and my participants, and facilitating relationship building between participants. And over time, while old people come to dance for different reasons and through different mechanisms, the thing that I've seen by working with people over time is the thing that matters to them most
is the social connection, and that is what is having the greatest impact. So my thing is relationship, knowing your participants, and lots of things come out of that in terms of meeting their needs and desires.
Which, as you say, girls, what the young people were presenting this morning.
Hi, Fiona Womengu from Macquarie Regional Council and practicing artist. There was a few things that I hope I don't lose the thread of that was inspired by what Alison said before about having an accessibility line in your budget. I've been with council for over 10 years. When I first started, I was very interested in accessible practice. Change takes a really long time, and just recently we've been able to make some, I guess, movement forward. And part of that is that I'm lucky enough now to have other people in management who are able to listen and understand the importance of some of these needs, but also I've got more experience now. I know better how to kind of chip away at the block, and I know just to do things to show example rather than try and explain to people why it's important. So some of the things that we haven't really promoted yet because it's still in process, but like food space coming on board, and again inspired by people within our community who had access needs. One of the arguments that was always said to me in the health sector, in the disability sector, in the art sector, I've worked across all of them, when I've been trying to do something, they say, oh, we can't justify that cost because there's not a big enough need. And my argument always was, if there is one person who can access what I'm doing, and that is enough. One person who needs it is enough to justify it. You don't have to have a big enough group who need that access. So that's something I've been speaking on about.
So maybe part of
the
process is that we can tell that one person's story and we grasp the understanding of the weight of the experience, then we can sell it on in a way that we can't sell on the statistics.
Yeah.
So I just talk.
Can I take a little bit more time just to make the point? I'm sorry. So what I've started doing more recently over the last couple of years is I've just started doing, so I spoke to my bosses and I got approval. I just started paying for Auslan translators to come to events because the question was, well, what if no one from the Mackay Deaf community comes to the event? And so I thought about it, I thought, oh, well, I'm going to live stream it because then it doesn't matter if they're actually at the event or not. What we're doing is accessible to people who watch it on the live stream.
So it's doing one thing and doing it well.
Yeah, and I've just continued to do that, and I've kept track of what those costs are. And now, for the first financial year ever, community programs at Mackay Regional Council have an accessibility account line. Now, for that to happen, we had to have support from management. And I've been in the industry for a long time. I've purposefully chosen not to be in those positions so that I can continue to work the way that I do. And I'm now lucky enough to be in a situation where there's people who's listening. So if you do have people who will listen to you, if you just do the smallest thing and keep doing it, slowly sometimes it grows.
Great, thanks. Cindy.
Thank you. I just want to respond to a beautiful word, a very sensitive word that Zoe dropped into her last emotional speech, and that's clear. I actually want to just open my heart and put a beautiful shout out of respect and empathy, not only to our bold LGBT community, but the silent LGBT community. The people who live their lives, and sometimes their entire lives, as LGBTQ, who are never ever going to be recognised, they're never going to be brave enough to access funding, and it can contribute to very poor mental health and family relationships. And I just want to acknowledge those people today. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Right, so we've got about, I think, 20 minutes, maybe a quarter of an hour.
Scotia, there is a lady here who's been trying to say...
Sorry, Julie.
Try that. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to pick up on the LGBTI
note as well. Working with older people, you know, we just had a member, an esteemed artist, you know, contribute to a Convergence just a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the number of people in the gay community who go back into the closet when they are older because of the fear of what's going to happen if they have to go into aged care. And just related to that, I remember when I was doing some contact improv many years ago with a fabulous dancer who did use a wheelchair, and she said, look, it's fine, we can all, you know, do this together because I might have a disability, but you guys are just noddies. No obvious disability yet. So, you know, we could all head this way. We don't know what's going to happen in our futures. So, yeah.
Of this one step forward, what would you say? Do one thing and do it well. What might be your one thing that you will take away from today? You might already be doing it, but you might have found another new little step over the top of what you're already doing to apply, or at least sort of experiment or think about developing. So I'm going to just give everyone a few moments. You can either talk to the person next to you or have a little bit of a think about what that might be, and then you're escaping before you take your action with you.
I think that every organisation should have a disability action plan. So in New South Wales, when I work with Accessible Arts, with Arts Northern Rivers and a lot of orgs, that's what we were in the process of doing, and now it's mandatory.
So your Razzle Group is going to have a disability action plan?
Yes.
Fantastic.
And even if we have one thing on that action plan for the next 12 months, it's one thing that we want doing.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Wanda.
Helpful tip. Braille printing is really easy. You just send off a PDF.
Close to you now.
Okay, Braille printing is really, really easy. You just send off a PDF. It costs you less than $100 to get a menu. Everyone should be doing it. It's really, really easy. Okay, see you. Have a great episode.
I was told by Cindy that I didn't say enough, and she gave me the microphone just when it came to actions. No.
No, I want to hear you talk. I really respect you.
I think that's a great idea for us as a Razzin community to investigate what we're doing in the disability area and see if we can have every Razzin group have some kind of disability action statement. So I'll see what I can do about that.
Okay, so we understand that change takes time, and I think there was a comment this morning in one of the meetings I went to that it's just about turning up. So we all have to turn up. So the question, we're going to send the microphones around like we did at the beginning. What is your thing that you're going to do to turn up to? How is it relational? And how does it support self-determination? So thinking on the fly.
Yeah, totally thinking on the fly.
Remember, right up close to your mouth.
Yeah. I don't know how much of an action this is. Because we work primarily with people with disability. It is about trying to, and the action for me is, and I always try to do anyway, is undercovering those groups that are marginalised within the marginalised. So there can be a hierarchy of disability. So it's dismantling even that, as you're saying, Zoe. So what system where is that hierarchy of disability, and how do we dismantle that, and how do we uncover those people that you were talking about as well, Cindy or Jodie and Jodie as
So
well.
how are you going to do it?
Look, we always extend the invite to everyone that can be involved in our programs. And I guess it's just being mindful of that and trying to connect with those people if they want to be connected with or not.
Putting your money where your mouth is. Something that I see a lot, especially in mental health services, is this really nice, is the tokenism. It's like, oh, we have the rainbow flag, and we've got the Aboriginal flag, and we've got that like insurers have like probably done so far. Yeah, so look, and this is calling myself out. So I think it's having docu-history from inception of my initiative. I've been working in the sector for less than 2 years. So my history, how far back your things go, and say, well, like, what have we done? Because chances are you could have been, what you're actively doing in your organisation, some milestones and targets, and when you're going to achieve them. If, you know, we don't have much certainty in the sector, especially like, oh, that's a nice idea, but your funding's gone. You know, like, if we can go, what is the date and deadline that we want to accomplish this by? And then what plan Bs and Cs and Ds do we have to navigate if things fall through, so that we can still ensure that people who need things have those outcomes?
Great, thanks Zoe, but let's keep it to what are we going to do? So, a specific action.
So I think for youth and school leaders, I think that what we are going to do and what we do at the gallery is that we provide a space for them to come and be creative, pretty much.
So Libby, what are you going to do about activating that more specifically? What are you specifically going to do?
Well, I think it's about sort of being an ambassador, I guess, for other young people who are about to leave school or have left school, because I think when you are about to leave school, a barrier can actually look like a void, and when you're about to leave school, you need someone there to go, well, did you know that there's actually a traineeship going at the gallery, or did you know that you can apply for this funding, or did you know that you can do this and do that? And often you hear it better when it's coming from someone who is your age or around your demographic, because if you hear it from someone who's older, it might be like, oh, shut up, mum and dad, you know, I can make my own decisions. But if you hear it from someone your own age, you go, wow, that's really cool, I want to do that. So, yeah, I think that's...
Thanks, Libby. So to be an ambassador, I think that you mentioned that earlier.
Just to be quick then, and to add on to what Libby has said, and something Zoe, leading on to what Zoe said before, more about having consultation with you. We come up with these programs that we think this is the way to go. We talk to the art teachers, this is the way to go. We actually haven't sat down and done a consultation with the youth panel, which I think would be our next move, my next move.
Okay, so we'll check in and make sure you've done that in 6 months' time.
Between notes from today in this room and notes from the arts forum, I have definitely more than one thing that I'm going to do. An increase.
What would be your top?
I think we'd really love the disability access plan and the Braille menu for Space Girls 2020. We will definitely consultation with more minority groups, and another one that I loved that was by who said it, Nakinda in the youth forum. This was my favourite: facilitate and get out of the way. Yeah.
One thing that you personally will do.
Obviously I mirror most of Cindy's sentiments there, but specifically I'm going to make sure that I spend a lot more time on the ground speaking directly with the people that we're trying to give that space to, rather than me creating that space. I'm just handing it over.
Fantastic.
One thing, many things
Your
are written
top.
down. Yeah,
just for the sake
look
of
at alumni program of people who've done our programs at young people, and looking at them becoming mentors.
Fantastic.
Hi, very quickly. I have an interest in the arts, of course, as a work. I also have an interest in disability. I'm on the Board of Disability Matters in Atherton. I'm on the RABF committee. The barrier that we face up there, of course, is isolation. My action is to step up to leadership to make sure that we keep informed and involved.
Fantastic. So much for retirement.
Yeah, exactly. I thought I was heavy.
Not being personally affiliated with any councils or major art groups, but just advocacy for the different organisations and groups. I think we can all do that personally. Brendan with the Braille menus and that sort of paper. I think if everybody sort of gets behind that and just lets business owners and that know that, hey, it's okay, we support this.
So what will you personally do?
Advocate. Basically.
To who? One person in your community you're going to speak to when you get home.
business owners, actually. Whenever we're going out and chatting about,
the local fish and chip shop.
Local fish and chip shop, exactly. But anybody, because exactly. I think we all know that money makes the world go round, and if we all sort of decide to shop and buy at places that do support these people, it'll come back.
Thank you. Right, customer.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to take back to the galleries implementing an Auslan translator for opening events and just events in general, and also to push for an accessibility plan.
Fantastic. Karen. Right, close to you, Mel.
I'm going to continue speaking about mental health every opportunity I get through my art in public, and I'm going to explore avenues actively when I get back home to see what more I can do.
Fantastic. Self-representation.
I just wanted to reinforce, I don't work for council. Ours is a privately run organisation that was raised for artists. But I do sit on the consultative group for Harvey Bay Regional Gallery and consult with Fraser Coast Regional Council on behalf of the visual arts in the region. And I intend to go back and take that same advice, facilitate for the people I represent, and then get the hell out of the way.
So getting a seat at the table, and often the seats are there, but we don't sit up to take them.
And you know what? Like before this, I'm going to confess, like 2 weeks ago I got to burn out with this process, and I actually sent in my resignation and I said I'm done with this fight. I'm just so exhausted from it. But the people on that crew sent me a message and said, just take a breather, we want you to come back. And the breather I took was to come down here, meet all you fine people, get inspired again.
So just following up, every RIDF committee, every state organisation, Arts Funding, has a assessment panel, and the Australia Council has an assessment panel. And the only way you get on those is to put your name forward. They can't come to you and ask you. So if you really want to represent your community, you need to step up and be putting yourself on the line to do those assessments. And I think it's really important that we encourage our young people and our diverse communities to put their name forward, because we really need those voices. I've been on those assessment panels and they're dearth of alternative voices. Michelle?
For me, definitely making sure that every community group and local government that I'm working with is actually having that conversation for every single project that
So what's one thing you would do to make that happen?
Actually ask them if they've done anything about
Great.
it, basically. But also from luckily from our perspective as being the Regional Arts Services Network, using our voice to advocate for more resources. And I know it's going to be a long battle, but the resources, and we see it across all of the creative industries, the lack of resources for staff, for projects is quite crippling, and it gives us burnout. And I would like to find a way that we can jam it into our governments to make sure that they're actually listening to us.
You have to demand. We have to be more vocal. So let's keep going, because we're almost out of time, but I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts. So short, sharp, sweet.
So,
right close to your mouth.
Me, myself, which is actually a we, are going to try and change perceptions by developing a promotional video that shows older people dancing in all their diversity and context, and as well as having them talk about the impact of dance on their lives and why they dance, so that other people can see what's possible.
Fantastic. We look forward to seeing you at the next film festival.
I'm wanting to create a space, a place. So in that I am going to be a role model. I will act with a culture of inclusiveness.
Great, thank you.
What I'm hearing is the supporters need support, and our agency usually does that, but I think I'm going to tell them I'm here to support the supporters and the carers need caring for, and also keep knocking on those doors to remind the government agencies that the challenging people on the fringes have a voice and they're amazing, and they might be difficult to listen to sometimes because we can get pretty angry, but rightfully, and just be the interpreter, I hope, to be able to go inside the tent.
And I think people forget that every time you send a letter or have a conversation, they multiply that by 1,000 voices. So it's worth every week having a chat.
Okay, I recently made friends with an Auslan interpreter up in my part of the world, so from now on all my quotes for corporate comedy gigs and things of that nature will include a line for Auslan translation.
Brilliant.
Because she's up to working with me, I'm up to working with her.
We're about to release our next RAV program guidelines with a Braille copy. So what I intend to do is work with Brendan and Crossroad Arts to work out how the application, we've got an online application process, work out how we can make that accessible or what process we need to follow so that he can access grants.
Fantastic.
I'm going to talk to Julie about what we can do in the way of a youth mentorship or some sort of youth program as a council, because what Zoe was saying about, we tried something a couple of years ago that didn't really work, but local government's always moving on to the next thing, and I don't think we reflected on that enough, and just sort of like went, well, we tried it, they didn't engage, you know, let's go on to the next thing. But I think we need to, start at the beginning. That's me.
It's cyclic, isn't it? We have to remember to come back. I think the young people this morning were saying that we're young now, but we won't be in 5 years, so you've got to have the continuous conversation.
I think the action that I'm going to take is move out of being an advocate in the refugee, migrant and asylum seeker space and moving into a role of being an advocate for more representation in the arts. And the reason why I keep using the word representation is because I think the word diversity has been thrown around a lot, and if we were doing it right by now, we wouldn't still be using it. So it's about representation, and just also to bring attention to two resources that everyone can access. There's an organization called Mayan, which is a multicultural youth advocacy network, mayan.org.au if you want to go into that. There's a resource they call the National Youth Framework. So that is information about how to work with young people from COLE backgrounds, what are the issues that they're facing, and how you can go about going into those spaces and finding where they are. So, and making things more accessible for them. And then also, I think that it's important for arts workers moving forward, including myself, to get cultural training, how to work with COLE backgrounds and getting that training. And there are organizations who offer that, MDA, which is in Brisbane, but Access Community Services, who is BMAC's mother company, offers that as well, and they're in Toowoomba, Ipswich, Brisbane area. You can look into that as well. So, yeah.
Thanks. There's also a range of Indigenous organisations that offer cultural training as well. Brendan.
I asked Brendan before, it's not just there, but he did answer. He said, we go for lunch every Friday to pretty much the same place, and they don't have a Braille menu. So, and it's on this nice strip where there's, a dozen food places. So he said that we should walk along there and talk to every business and get them to have a Braille menu. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what about you, Matt?
I don't know. Sorry.
Not just menus, so your artistic programs, if you're putting it in arts, if you're putting it in an arts context, it doesn't have to just be the menus. So it could be your festival programs, your artistic programs, the flyers that you have in the gallery. We get labels done by Vision Australia and put them on the back of all our postcards and everything, so Brendan's able to read them. They're just Braille stickers that go on the back, they're adhesives, they're cheap to get from Vision Australia as well. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's your one, Matt.
So my action is I'm going to type all this up and it's going to be spread through back to the conference. So thank you everyone for your very generous conversations today. I'd like to just thank all of our leading conversation provocateurs. Big round of applause. Thank you for contributing and telling your stories. And keep up the conversation. I think, again, that message of turn up and turn up and turn up and turn up is required. So thank you all for turning up. Enjoy the rest of the festival. Before you go, we want to get a 360 photo. Is that right? And that there is a show, there is something in my shoe performance here this afternoon, which is by an artist with a disability. Is that correct? So we'd love for you to encourage you to stay and watch the show. Thanks again. 360 photo.
Thanks, Scotia, too. Scotia.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you can all move.
Scotia. The answer here.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the show that's about to happen is called There's Something in My Shoes. Rose and I are from the Sunshine Coast and we've travelled here with this performance work. So Rose is over here, all dressed and ready to go. Rose has cerebral palsy and we've had an amazing time working together the last 18 months. So if you hang around, I'll talk a little bit more about the performance, and then the performance is about 30 minutes long.
Great. And I also want to say thank you to everyone who joined us online, and I'm sorry you couldn't be part of that last circle of actions, but I hope that you've written yours down and that we will hear about them as we continue conversations around the outcome of this gathering. So thank you again for persisting with us and turning up.
And that stream will be available online. Thanks everyone for your help with this.
Thanks to for enabling the online streaming to happen, and thanks for our tech. How many of you are back there? Woo, thank you.
Alrighty.